hello everybody, I'm Doc Eon, welcoming you to another miniatures ramble for Monday the 11th of September 2017. And I've finished, in a manner of speaking, a bunch of minis, namely these 5 that you see before you, the last of those Dark Sword minis that I was making a project of. And you might have sensed a certain amount of frustration in me in these past weeks. I've discovered I'm not a fan of the extremely impossibly fine detail on them. I just find it very difficult to paint. I find it sort of pointless because nobody can see it with the naked eye. But anyway, the point of the exercise was actually to practice some techniques. And I have practiced all of those techniques except one, except the NMM, the non-metallic metal. I gave up on the armor, and these 2 swords I originally wanted to do the NMM, but eventually I just saw, no, they're too small. I can't practice a new technique on something that tiny. It's not gonna work. So I just did a sort of pseudo NMM with metallic paints, and I finished these off. But the important practice with this model, for example, was the red of the cloak. And on this model, it was mostly the wings and the sort of dark elf, the drow skin tones I was practicing. And as such, it was a good learning experience. And the remaining 3 are all practice with OSL, with object source lighting. Now, this one, it might be a little bit bright. I'm not sure if the sculpt properly conveys what's supposed to be happening. This swish here is supposed to imply that there's motion, that she's just lowered, she's swung her arm from up here to down there with the wand, well, it's a branch really, and that it's glowing, and there's lights or maybe some sort of actual energy streaming out, and it's giving off yellow light. And could have been better done by me, as well. I'm not sure. I feel I got the hair and the cloak and the dress, the normal painting, done very well. Well, as well as I usually do. The OSL, it's difficult. This one is a bit better. Again, this is some dark elf practice. Dark on dark colors. I was practicing doing a different kind of black for the cloak. This is a blue black as opposed to a sort of purple black for the skin. And green light coming off this magical skull. And illuminating her hair. Works semi-okay. Now, this one is possibly the one I'm least happy about. It's supposed to be casting sort of reddish light from the torch, and you can see it kind of subtly, or maybe not so subtly, coloring the lighter cloak and hood. But the issue is that it seems like there's a competing light source, because I just started out by highlighting everything just my normal way, my normal zenithal highlighting scheme. And it doesn't actually give the impression that this character is somewhere where you need a torch. If she were in a dark forest or a deep dungeon, and she had to have a torch for light, and this was the only light source, the highlights would not be placed where they are. To do that, I would need to, from the start, paint the entire figure as if the light was coming from here. As if this, I would paint highlights the normal way, but I would paint them as if white light was coming from here, and I would make a rather large difference between parts that would be visible from here and parts that would not. The parts that would not would be more shaded than I normally do for miniature that's in the sunlight, because there's less ambient light in darkness. And then I would add on the red glaze afterward. So I'm gonna have to try that. But you know, I haven't painted that many miniatures with torches, come to think of it. I think this is like the second, maybe third miniature I ever painted that had a torch. Yeah, I mean, you gotta practice. I'll get better, hopefully. And in progress still, we have all the giants. Now, the Cloud Giant has really not been touched since last week, so let's put her aside for the moment. The Storm Giant, I, for some reason, went in and did the metallics. I think because I was doing the metallics on the Fire Giants, and I decided, why not do them at the same time? And I was a little inspired by the box art, I have to admit. I'll show it to you sometime later again. But it's coming along, I think. But let's move him aside as well. Now the Fire Giants, I don't remember how much of this was actually done last week. I sort of finished up the metallics. They might still require a little bit of touch-up, but they're like 90% done. And I have base coated the skin and the hair, and which for the male giants mostly means the beards. And it's not so much a base coat, it's an undercoat, you might say. I'm going for red, or at least bright orange hair. So I need to cover up the black primer first, because otherwise you can't build up a transparent color like red or orange. So I did a sort of a reddish brown, just to, as an undercoat. Now, I think I'll probably finish these by next week. I'm not sure, but it seems like probable. This might be a good time to talk about, if you've been really perceptive, you might have noticed this video is a little bit different from my previous ones in its editing, in the transitions, in the text, and so forth. And that's because I'm using a new method for it. If you recall, a few weeks back I mentioned that YouTube was shutting down its online video editor. And that's still happening next week, the 20th. So I decided I want to move away from using it in advance. And I've also mentioned that I don't have currently a computer at home that can actually process video properly. And I don't really want to buy something just quickly that's just good enough. I want to upgrade to a really, really good powerhouse PC. So I want to hold off on that. But I don't want to leave you guys hanging in the meantime without any videos. So just this week, the obvious solution struck me. This should have struck me a long time ago. I can simply edit it at work. I can bring the camera with the clips on it to work on Monday morning, transfer the clips to my laptop in the office, and after work is done for the day in the afternoon, I can sit down before I go home and edit and upload a video. Problem solved. The only downside is that the videos will show up later in the day. I will do this in the afternoon rather than the morning. But, you know, if you're in the US, it's going to seem like morning to you anyway. And I've noticed that I don't get a whole lot of views before the evening in any case. Funnily enough, a lot of people seem to want to get home from work before they watch videos about miniature painting. Wonder why. Anyway, apart from that, as you probably have seen, I'm trying to keep the formats somewhat similar. I'm using the same music. It's a different recording, but it's the same piece of music. I'm trying to use something like the same text font and size and things like that. But as I am now using Windows Movie Maker, the simplest video editor I can find, I have more options, and going forward I might try to start using them a little bit and modify things in the layout of the videos. Not sure yet. But anyway, I just thought I'd let you know what was going on, and that there will be no interruption of service, as I was worried about. Yeah. Yeah, this little info comes in the middle of the video because I couldn't figure out where to put it, so I'm just saying it here. Next up, new projects. The the Sorcerer, Thousand Suns Sorcerer, has been assembled, partially assembled. I've left the backpack off and primed. And I did not go with the multi-tone primer this time. I did not go with a pre-shaded look. I simply put down a coat of Desert Tan Surface Primer. And the reason is that this is not a model where that sort of priming would be useful. You don't need a pre-shade on this model because it is composed of a lot of small sections. Each needs its own color and each has its own highlighting scheme. There would simply be no point in giving a sort of general zenithal undercoat. It wouldn't help. For the backpack, I tried something a bit new. I also tried not just priming, but also base coating, or maybe undercoating, with the airbrush. And I did it in a slightly different way than I usually do. Normally, when I paint metallics, I've always gone the route of undercoating with a normal paint, with a flat paint, either black for silver metallics or dark brown for golds. This time I tried something I've seen other people do, which sort of combine the undercoats, mixing metallic and normal paint. So what this is a 1-to-1, a 50-50 mixture of charred brown, which is just a normal dark brown, a reddish dark brown, and brassy brass, Galileo Game Air, both of them. And this produced what I think is a pretty nice sort of dark bronze kind of look. It's not going to stay like this because I'm going to highlight this up, and this is just going to be the shade layer essentially, but it's a nice starting point, I think. I also think it's time to reveal my next project that's coming up, and it is Space Marines. Surprise! I haven't painted these suckers in a long while, and yeah. But I just kind of got the feeling that to really practice using my airbrush, I want to do a project where the main portion of the miniature is completely painted by airbrush, and Space Marines are a good choice for that because a lot of them, a Space Marine model is just one color, usually. If you choose your chapter right, it's going to be a single color scheme, mainly. And I've simply looked at what do I have left that's unpainted. Not much. I have a partial box of a tactical squad Marines. I don't know how many models I can get out of the bits that are left in this. Maybe 5, hopefully. Maybe more. It depends on well, how I decide to go about things. Then I have the assault squad, which is complete. This is untouched. Well, taken off the plastic and opened it and taken a look inside, but all the parts are there, so I can build the full 5-man team. Then I have a bag of various loose bits, which I'll have to search through for anything useful. And I have a bunch of bits left over on the sprues from my Chaos Space Marine box. Now, no legs and no torsos of the Chaos Space Marines. There's a good amount of arms, heads, shoulder pads, weapons. Yeah. And I'll probably be going a little bit heretical in that in order to maximize the use of all the bits I have, I will bastardize some models. I'll do some sort of halfway Chaos Marines. You know, some Marines that are mostly normal Space Marines, but have like a Chaos weapon and arm, for example, or one shoulder pad that's Chaos affected, so to speak. And I don't really care about being canon or correct in the lore, because I don't play the game. I just want to paint some cool minis. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how far along I get by next week. I'm not promising that I'll get far, because I still have a lot of other stuff on my plate, as you've seen. But I just wanted to stake out a direction. I wanted to get you excited about what's coming up. Yeah, and that's all I need to say about that. This week's new arrivals will be displayed very quickly. It's just a small box from Heresy Miniatures. I just find it very hard to resist whenever they have a sale, and also sometimes I need them if they have. One of the things I got was a bunch of 60mm round bases, which is something I need for my bigger creatures and monsters, like those giants, for example. But I also picked up 2 resin kits, and I got a lollipop as well. That's nice of them. I got 2 resin kits, slightly larger monsters. This guy is kind of interesting. He is an ogre who's throwing a table at somebody. Let's see which way around. Right, something like this attaches, and he's about to hit somebody with this table, which I think is really cool. And the other one is just, I think it's called a troll, and it's, oops, some small pieces left over here. It's just this big guy, and his arms are separate. I think this one attaches here somehow, and the other attaches at his shoulder. Wow, it looks really outsized, but yeah, maybe it's correct. I don't know, there were some small bits that fell out. Oh, yeah, these are skulls? I don't know if they belong, should be attached somewhere. I'll have to look at it under a magnifying glass to figure that out. But, you know, cool monsters are cool. So, that is it for this week. If you enjoyed the video, click like and subscribe. You can click like even if you didn't like it. I won't mind. And if you have a comment, place it down below. And I will see you next week. Until then, I'm Ducky Yan, and I'm signing off.